I overheard my wife saying she regretted settling for me, and let's just say, karma didn't take long to pay her a visit. But before I get into all that, let me back up and lay some groundwork. I'm 28 years old, and my wife, Lena, is 23. We'd been together for a few years and had only been married about 6 months. From my perspective, everything seemed pretty typical. Or so I believed. Sure, like any couple, we had our share of ups and downs, but nothing that ever raised red flags. I honestly thought things were solid between us. Then, the other night, something happened that turned my world completely on its head. I wasn't snooping or trying to eavesdrop or anything. I just happened to be walking past our bedroom when I heard Lena talking on the phone. I didn't mean to listen, but sometimes conversations just sort of pull you in when your name gets mentioned. You know what I mean? Well, this was one of those moments, and what I caught has been echoing in my mind ever since. Lena was on the line with one of her close friends. I couldn't tell who, but the tone made it clear this wasn't some light chat. It sounded heavy, emotional, like the kind of talk people have when they're venting about life. I was about to keep walking, but then I distinctly heard her mention my name. And yeah, that made me freeze. I mean, let's be honest. Anyone would stop if they heard their name pop up in a private conversation. It sparks something inside you, whether you want it to or not. Lena said, "Don't just settle for someone." That's where I messed up with Daniel. I swear, it felt like my heart just stopped right there. It hit like a sucker punch to the chest. She kept going, "He was the last option I had, and look where that's gotten me." I stood there like a statue, completely stunned. I couldn't even process it right away. The woman I married, the one I thought was happy with me, basically said I was her fallback plan. My brain couldn't make sense of it. It was like my thoughts short-circuited. What are you supposed to do with something like that? Part of me wanted to walk in and confront her right then and there, but I didn't. I can't really explain why. Maybe it was shock. Maybe I didn't want to hear any more than I already had. Whatever the reason, I just turned and walked away. The rest of that night, I couldn't focus on anything else. I tried to act normal around Lena, but it was eating me alive. Every time I looked at her, those words came back and slammed into me all over again. Last resort. It was like those words were branded into my skull. I kept wondering, how long has she felt this way? Has she always thought of me like that? Was I completely blind to it? Sleep? Forget it. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling all night, just replaying that moment in my head again and again. Some part of me wanted to believe I misunderstood. Maybe I didn't catch the whole thing. Maybe I misheard. But deep down, I knew exactly what she said. There was no mistaking it. No spinning it into something less painful. The worst part? There had never been any real signs before. Lena always acted content. Maybe even happy. Sure, we had occasional spats like any couple does, but nothing that ever made me think she felt stuck with me. She wasn't pressured into marrying me. We'd been together for a decent amount of time before saying, "I do." We had real talks about our goals, our plans for the future, maybe even starting a family someday. It never felt forced, at least not to me. But lying there that night, my mind just kept spiraling. What if she's always felt like this and just kept it to herself? What if every time she said, "I love you," it was just part of the act, just going through the motions? I felt like the biggest fool alive, looking back at all those moments I thought were genuine, now wondering if any of it was real. And then, another horrible thought crept in. What if there was someone else? I mean, she said she settled. That implies there was someone else she really wanted. Someone she maybe still wants. That idea sat in my stomach like a rock. I didn't want to believe it, but once the thought took hold, it wouldn't let go. By the time morning came, I was wrecked, physically and emotionally drained. Lena woke up all chipper, like nothing had happened, like the night before hadn't shattered me inside. I tried to keep it together, but it wasn't easy. I couldn't confront her right away. I needed to gather myself, to figure out what I wanted to say and how to say it. But the longer I kept quiet, the more it felt like I was being crushed from the inside. I spent the whole day watching her, overanalyzing every little thing she did. Was she texting someone? Was she emotionally distant? Was she keeping something from me? I felt like I was losing it, caught between suspicion and self-doubt. But can you blame me? Hearing the person you love call you their last resort does something to your head. I even thought about telling one of my buddies what happened just to get it off my chest. But I was too embarrassed. What would I say? Hey, I heard my wife say she settled for me, what now? It sounded so pathetic. Like something ripped straight out of a bad soap opera. And honestly, I didn't want to turn my friends against Lena in case this was something we could actually work through. Still, no matter how much I wanted to ignore it, I knew this wasn't something I could just pretend never happened. It was too big, too raw to shove aside. As the hours dragged on, my anxiety only got worse. I knew I needed to talk to her, I just couldn't figure out how. What if she came clean? What if she told me flat out she never loved me? Or worse, what if she brushed it off like it didn't matter? That thought made my chest tighten. But pretending everything was okay wasn't an option either. So that evening after dinner, I finally worked up the nerve. I kept it casual and said, hey, we should talk a little later. She looked at me a little confused but nodded like it was no big deal. She had no idea that conversation was about to shift everything. Ever since I overheard Lena say I was her fallback, my head's been spinning nonstop. No matter how much I try to downplay it, those words just won't stop echoing. And the next day, everything felt off. Like the world had shifted just a bit and I couldn't get my footing. I started noticing things I'd never picked up on before. Or maybe I just didn't want to notice them until now. Lena was different. Still smiling. Still saying all the right things. But something about the way she moved, the way she spoke, it felt like she was putting on a show. Or maybe I was just paranoid now because of what I heard. But that tension? It was real. Even if neither of us said a word about it. That morning during breakfast, I caught myself watching her more than usual. She was on her phone, scrolling like she always does. But I noticed her type something quickly, delete it, then type again. For some reason, it made me uneasy. So I asked casually, who are you texting? She looked up like I'd caught her off guard. Oh, just a friend, she said, with a shrug that sounded a little too smooth. She's just a friend, you don't know her, Lena said offhandedly, then immediately went back to scrolling through her phone. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary on its own, but after everything I'd overheard, even the smallest things felt suspicious. I didn't push the issue. I just gave a quick nod and pretended like it didn't bother me. But it did. A lot more than I let on. The entire day, my mind kept circling back to the words she said that night. Was this the same friend she was talking to on the phone when she dropped that emotional bomb? Or was she texting someone entirely different? My brain kept spinning, creating all these scenarios, none of them good. I couldn't help but wonder, was there more to all this than just her regretting being with me? Was she hiding something deeper? Later that day, I walked in on her smiling at her phone. But it wasn't just any smile, it was soft, almost tender, like she was reading something meant just for her. I tried to keep it light and asked, what's so funny? She snapped her eyes up, quickly locking her screen like she'd been caught. Oh, nothing, she said too fast. Just a meme. But the way she said it didn't sit right. It wasn't casual, it felt rehearsed, like she was covering something up. That's when the doubt started digging its claws in deep. Was she still in touch with someone from her past? An ex maybe? Someone she never quite let go of? I hated that I was thinking like this. I never wanted to be the paranoid, suspicious husband, the guy who questions every glance, every text, every smile. But after what I heard, I couldn't help myself. Everything suddenly felt like a clue. Every little moment seemed like it might be hiding some bigger truth I didn't want to face. And the weirdest part? She was acting completely normal otherwise. We still went about our day, ran errands, cooked dinner, even curled up on the couch to watch TV like we always did. But I felt the shift, this invisible wall between us. I didn't know if she felt it too, or if she was just really good at pretending. At one point, we were watching some random show and she leaned her head on my shoulder. It should have felt comforting, it used to, but now it felt off. Like her affection didn't match the things I'd heard. Was it real? Or just a routine? I wanted to ask her about it right then and there, to just get it all out in the open. But every time I tried to form the words, my mind stopped me cold. What if I misunderstood? What if I made something bigger out of a stupid conversation? Still, no matter how much I tried to reason with myself, those words kept coming back like a drumbeat. Daniel was my last resort. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. There was no joking tone, no hesitation. It sounded like a truth she'd been holding in. And that was what crushed me most. By the time the day wound down, I felt completely drained. I couldn't keep doing this, second-guessing everything she said or did. I knew I had to confront her eventually, but every time I even thought about it, my stomach twisted into knots. What if she came out and confirmed everything I feared? What if she told me she didn't really love me? As we got ready for bed that night, Lena seemed completely oblivious to the emotional chaos inside me. She kissed me goodnight like nothing was wrong and fell asleep in minutes. I, on the other hand, lay there wide awake, my mind in overdrive. I started thinking back on our entire relationship, picking it apart. Were there signs all along that I just missed? Was she distant sometimes, and I just wrote it off as stress or a bad day? Had she tried to tell me she wasn't happy, and I'd been too wrapped up in my own comfort to notice? And then that awful thought hit me again. What if she was comparing me to someone else? Someone she wanted but couldn't have? The idea that I was her fallback, that I was chosen not out of love, but out of convenience, made my stomach turn. I stared at the ceiling for hours, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. I couldn't keep living with this cloud over my head. But I also knew I couldn't just throw it all out there in the middle of the night. I had to pick the right time. I had to be prepared, really prepared, for whatever she was going to say. Because once that conversation started, there would be no turning back. A few days passed, and the weight of it all just kept building. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to talk to her, no matter how much it scared me. I mean, how do you live with someone who might see you as nothing more than a backup plan? That morning, we were both home. I tried to keep things normal, even though my heart was pounding like a drum. We sat down for breakfast, but I couldn't taste a single bite. My eyes kept drifting toward her, trying to figure out how to begin. Every time I thought about starting the conversation, I'd chicken out. But eventually, I couldn't keep it in anymore. After we finished eating, I took a deep breath and said, "Hey Lena, can we talk?" She glanced up from her phone, surprised, but she nodded. I motioned toward the living room, and we both sat down on the couch. You could practically feel the tension in the air. It was so thick it could have been cut with a knife. Lena looked at me, clearly wondering what this was all about. Her expression was somewhere between confusion and concern. I swallowed hard and tried to keep my voice steady. "I need to ask you something, and I really need you to be honest with me." She gave a small nod, still silent. I paused, then just said it. "A few nights ago, I overheard you on the phone with your friend. You said something about settling for me, that I was your last resort." Her eyes went wide. She didn't speak at first, and in that moment of silence, it felt like everything around us froze. Then she let out a nervous laugh. The kind you give when you've been caught off guard and don't know what else to do. "Wait, you heard that?" she asked, her voice uneven. "Yeah," I said, trying to stay calm. "I heard everything." She looked down at her hands, fidgeting with her fingers. "Daniel, I didn't mean it like that. I was just venting. It was a stupid thing to say." "Stupid," I echoed, feeling my chest tighten. "Lena, you said I was your last resort. That's not just careless. It's brutal." She sighed and rubbed her temples, like she was searching for the right words. I was frustrated. "Okay? I didn't mean it seriously. People say stuff when they're venting. Stuff they don't really mean." I stared at her, my voice getting sharper. "Don't mean anything? Come on. Words like that don't come out of nowhere. You don't just casually tell someone you settled for your husband unless some part of you believes it." She looked at me then, her expression a mix of guilt and frustration, like she was torn in too many directions at once. "It's not what you think, Daniel," she said. "I was just talking about how everyone feels pressured. Pressured to get married, to settle down." Her voice wavered as she added, "I was venting, just talking about life and all that." I leaned forward, unable to hide the disbelief in my voice. "But why did it have to be about me? About us? If you were just blowing off steam, you could have picked any topic. Why say that I was the one you settled for?" Lena shook her head as her eyes started to glisten with tears. "I didn't mean it like that," she whispered. "I love you, Daniel. I really do. I was just stressed. Came out wrong. And I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something didn't sit right." It felt like she was still holding back. So I asked her straight up, "Lena, do you actually feel that way? Like I was your last resort?" She looked down again, avoiding my eyes. The silence between us stretched so long it started to feel unbearable. And then, just barely audible, she murmured, "I don't know." Those 3 words hit me like a punch to the chest. "You don't know?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "What does that even mean?" "It means I'm confused," she said, her voice trembling. "I love you, but sometimes I question whether I made the right choice. Not because of you, but because of me. I think maybe I rushed into all of this too fast, and now I don't know how to make it right." I leaned back, trying to process what I was hearing. Part of me was furious, but another part just felt hollow, like the wind had been knocked out of me. "So what now?" I asked, barely getting the words out. "What do we even do with that?" Lena wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, sniffled, and shook her head. "I don't know," she whispered again. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I swear I didn't." We sat in silence, neither of us knowing what to say next. It felt like we were floating in limbo with no clear way forward and no way to go back. The only thing I was sure of was that our marriage, only 6 months in, already felt like it was standing on shaky ground. After that talk, everything between us felt fragile, tense, awkward, exhausting. We didn't say much the rest of the day. It was like we both needed a break from each other, but neither one of us wanted to be the first to admit it. Even the smallest things started to feel heavy, like we were tiptoeing around each other. The next morning didn't feel any better. We went through the motions: breakfast, getting dressed, pretending like everything was fine, but it wasn't. We were running on autopilot. All I could think about was those 3 words she said, "I don't know." They just kept echoing in my mind over and over. No clarity. No direction. Just that open-ended uncertainty that gnawed at me. Lena was quiet too, unusually quiet. She's normally the one who keeps things light, starts conversations. But now she barely spoke, lost in her own world. I noticed her staring at her phone a lot, probably still talking to that same friend. I wanted to ask, but I didn't have the energy. I was too emotionally drained to go down another spiral. By the time the afternoon rolled around, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I needed air. I needed to get away from the house, even if just for a little while. "I'm going for a walk," I told her. She didn't even look up. Just gave a quick nod, still staring at her screen. And that hurt more than I expected. I wandered the neighborhood for what felt like hours, trying to calm my racing thoughts. But no matter how far I walked, I couldn't escape the chaos in my head. When I finally made it back, Lena was right where I'd left her, sitting on the couch, still glued to her phone. Something about the sight of her like that pushed me over the edge. "Lena," I blurted, "we can't keep doing this. We need to figure this out." She looked up, startled by the suddenness in my voice. "I know," she said quietly. I don't know where to begin." "Start by telling me the truth," I said, sharper than I meant to. "Do you even want to be in this marriage? Because right now it feels like you've already checked out." She bit her bottom lip, clearly struggling. "Daniel, I don't want to hurt you, but I'm confused. I thought getting married would bring clarity, that things would click into place. But instead, it's made me realize how uncertain I am." It felt like another gut punch. "So, what are you saying?" I asked. "That you want out?" "I don't know," she said again, and I swear I could feel myself unraveling. "I just need time to figure out what I really want." Time. The go-to answer. But I didn't want time, I needed truth. I needed to know if this relationship had a future, or if I was just clinging to something that was already slipping away. "Lena," I said, struggling to stay composed, "time's not going to fix this. Either we're in it together, or we're not. Sitting around in silence isn't going to magically make everything better." She turned her head away from me, her eyes filling again. "I don't know what you want me to say," she whispered. "I'm scared. I don't want to make the wrong decision." I ran a hand through my hair, fighting the frustration. "And what about me? Do you think this is easy for me? Do you know what it's like to sit here wondering if your wife ever actually loved you, or if she just settled because she was afraid of being alone?" Her eyes snapped back to mine, hurt flashing across her face. "That's not fair," she said. "I do love you, Daniel. I think I moved too fast. I didn't give myself time to really think." "Then why didn't you speak up before the wedding?" I asked, the hurt breaking through my voice. "You had every opportunity to back out if you weren't sure." "Because I wanted to make it work," she admitted. "I didn't want to disappoint you. And I didn't want to feel alone again." And there it was, the truth I'd been dreading, but somehow already suspected. She married me out of fear, not certainty. And now we were both suffering for it. We sat there in silence, both lost in thought. I didn't even know what to say anymore. What can you say to someone who's just told you they're not sure they want to be with you? Eventually she spoke again. "Maybe we need some space. Just a little. To think things through." "Space?" I repeated, almost with a bitter laugh. "We've been sleeping in the same bed, eating at the same table, but emotionally we've been miles apart for days. What difference would more space make?" She didn't answer. And honestly, I didn't have one either. That night, we shared a bed like usual, but the distance between us was bigger than ever. I lay there staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same questions over and over. How did we end up here? And is there even a way back? Because deep down, I had this gut-wrenching feeling that no matter what we decided, whether we stayed or walked away, nothing between us would ever be the same again. After everything we'd been through, one thing became painfully clear: I couldn't stay stuck in this in-between space forever. Lena's indecision, her repeated "I don't know," was like slow-acting poison. It was quietly destroying me from the inside out. And if I didn't take control soon, it was going to break me completely. I realized I had to take back my life, even if it meant walking away from the woman I once believed I'd grow old with. The next morning, I woke up feeling something I hadn't in days: resolve. Lena was still asleep, curled up peacefully on her side of the bed, like the weight of everything we'd said and done didn't burden her the way it did me. And maybe it didn't. Maybe she'd already checked out emotionally, and I was the only one still trying to hold on to something that had already fallen apart. I slipped out of bed without waking her and went to the living room. I sat down and just let my mind wander. I pictured life without her, without us. It was terrifying, sure, but at the same time strangely freeing. The more I sat with it, the more I realized how much fear had been guiding me: fear of being alone, fear of losing her, fear of starting from scratch. But maybe, just maybe, being alone was better than being someone's fallback. Better than waking up every day wondering if I was ever truly wanted. I spent most of that day gathering my thoughts. I needed to be clear about what I was going to say: no more vague conversations, no more dodging the truth. That evening, after dinner, I sat her down. "Lena, we need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. She met my gaze, her expression serious. "Okay." I took a long breath, steadying myself. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, us, where we're heading, and I can't live in this limbo anymore. I need to know if we're going to fix this, or if we're just delaying the inevitable." Lena looked down, tugging at the edge of her sweater like it might somehow ground her. "I've been thinking too," she said softly. "And I don't think I can give you the kind of answer you want right now." I nodded. I'd seen that coming, but hearing it still stung. "Then I think it's best we go our separate ways," I said, my voice cracking just slightly. "I love you, Lena. I always will. But I can't stay in a marriage where I'm not someone's first choice. I deserve more than that." She started to cry, and for a split second, I felt like the bad guy. But I knew deep down this was the right call for both of us. Staying together out of guilt or fear wasn't love. It was just pain in slow motion. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered through her tears. "I know," I said gently. "And I don't want to hurt you either. But sometimes the kindest thing we can do is let each other go." We sat there in silence, letting the weight of everything settle in. It didn't feel real. It was like I was watching someone else's life unravel in front of me. But this was mine, and I had to own it. The next few days were hard. We began the slow, painful process of splitting things up, figuring out what belonged to who would move out, how we'd untangle the life we tried to build together. It was awkward. It was sad. But in a strange way, every small step we took felt like a weight being lifted, even though it hurt like hell. One night, as I was boxing up some of my stuff, Lena walked into the room. "Daniel," she said softly, "I really hope you find someone who makes you happy. Someone who gives you everything you need." I looked up at her, my chest tightening. "I hope you do too," I replied. That was it. No dramatic farewell, no big emotional climax. Just two people who'd finally come to terms with the fact that love doesn't always equal forever, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. After Lena moved out, I started turning my focus inward. I caught up with old friends I hadn't seen in ages, buried myself in work, and slowly began figuring out who I was without the title of husband. It wasn't easy. There were days I missed her so much I could barely breathe. Days where the silence in the house felt deafening. But deep down, I knew I had done the right thing. A few weeks after she left, I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I came across an old photo of us. We were smiling, laughing even. For a moment, I felt that familiar sting of regret, wondering if maybe I'd given up too soon. If I could have done more. But then I remembered all the sleepless nights, the confusion, the quiet pain of not knowing whether I was truly loved, and I reminded myself that sometimes letting go is the only way forward. I don't have it all figured out. I'm still healing. Still working through it one step at a time. But for the first time in a long while, I feel something I haven't felt in ages: hope. I know I deserve someone who sees me as their first choice. Someone who chooses me with certainty, not out of fear or obligation or loneliness. And I'm willing to wait for that. Moving on is hard. But staying stuck in something broken? That's even harder. And I'm finally ready to take that next step. Update 1. It's been about a month since Lena and I officially decided to part ways. And honestly, it's been rough. I've been doing everything I can to keep myself grounded, focusing on work, spending time with friends, trying to piece together a sense of normalcy. And for a while, I thought I was making good progress. I was starting to feel like myself again. Until life, in classic fashion, decided to hit me with another surprise. I was hanging out with one of my buddies, just catching up over drinks when he casually dropped a bomb on me. "Hey, did you hear Lena's dating someone?" he asked, like it was just another bit of small talk. I nearly choked. "Wait, what? Already?" "Yeah," he said, looking a little uneasy. "Saw her at a coffee shop with some guy. They looked pretty close." My stomach dropped. I mean, yeah, we were technically separated, but the divorce paperwork hadn't even gone through yet. And here she was, moving on like we'd never even happened. I tried to keep my cool. "Do you know who it is?" I asked, trying to sound indifferent. He hesitated. "I think it's the guy she used to mention before you two got married. You know, the one she had history with." And just like that, everything clicked. The secret of texting. The weird energy. Her being glued to her phone those last few weeks. It wasn't just emotional distance. It was him. He had been there, in the background, the whole time. I didn't say much after that. Just nodded and changed the subject. But inside, I was burning. It wasn't that she was seeing someone else. That part I could live with. What really got me was the timing. The realization that she may have had one foot out the door long before either of us admitted it. That night, I lay awake again, thinking back on every little moment during those final weeks. Every time she smiled at her phone. Every time she deflected my questions. Every time I second-guessed myself. Now I understood. And yeah, it hurt. But it also gave me something else, closure. She hadn't just grown distant, she was already gone. Checked out. Focused on someone else while I was still clinging to what we used to be. The next morning, I made up my mind to confront her. Not because I wanted to fix anything, we were past that, but because I needed closure. I needed answers. I needed her to say it out loud so I could finally stop guessing. I sent her a message asking if she'd meet me. She said yes, and later that day, we met at a park not too far from where we used to go on walks. Seeing her again was strange. She looked nervous, like she already knew what this conversation was going to be. Maybe she did. "Lena," I began, trying to keep my tone calm and level, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me." She nodded, staying quiet. "I heard you've been seeing someone," I said, watching her face for any reaction. "Is that true?" Her eyes widened for just a second, then dropped to the ground. "Yeah," she said softly. "I've been seeing someone." I took a breath even though I already knew. "Is it the same guy you were talking to before we separated?" She hesitated just long enough to answer the question without speaking and then gave a small nod. "Yes. It's him." And that was it. A flood of emotions hit me all at once, anger, sadness, disappointment. "So you were talking to him the whole time?" I asked. "Even when we were still trying to figure us out?" She looked down again, her face full of guilt. "I didn't plan for it to happen like that," she whispered. "We started talking again, and it felt right." "Felt right?" I repeated, the bitterness seeping into my voice. "Lena, we were married. We were supposed to be working things out. And you were already off chasing something new." Her voice was shaking now. "I know. I'm sorry, Daniel. I didn't mean to hurt you." But hearing her apologize didn't bring me peace. It made it worse. "If you'd been talking to him the whole time, why didn't you just tell me?" I said. "Why drag me through this mess instead of being honest from the start?" I didn't know how she admitted. I was scared. I didn't want to make things worse. I let out a dry laugh. "Well, congratulations. You managed to do that anyway." We sat in silence. I wanted to scream, to unload all the anger that had been building inside me. But I didn't. Because no amount of yelling would undo what was already done. Eventually, I stood up. "I hope he's worth it," I said, my voice cold and tired. "I hope you're happy with him." "Daniel," she started, but I cut her off. "I don't want to hear it. Just sign the divorce papers and let's be done." And I walked away. There was a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak in my chest. I was finally done with Lena. But the sting of betrayal doesn't disappear overnight. It stays with you. Wounds like that take time. Still, at least now I knew. And I could start moving forward without looking back. Update 2. A few weeks passed after that final conversation in the park. I honestly believed I was done with the drama. The divorce was still being finalized, but I was keeping my distance, minding my own business, trying to rebuild what was left of my life. And little by little, things started to improve. I got back into my routine, reconnected with people I'd lost touch with, and began to feel a little more like myself again. The bitterness was still there, sure, but it was fading. Slowly. Then one evening, out of nowhere, I got a message from Lena. Just seeing her name on my phone made my stomach drop. I stared at it for a good minute, debating whether I should even open it. Eventually, curiosity won. The message was vague. Can we talk? It's important. I rolled my eyes. What now? Part of me wanted to delete it and pretend I never saw it. But another part of me, against my better judgment, said yes. I agreed to meet her the next day. We met at a coffee shop. She walked in looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red and puffy, her face pale. She couldn't even look me in the eye. I didn't feel sympathy. Not anymore. All I could think about was how deeply she had hurt me and how I wasn't about to let her slip back into my life just because hers had fallen apart. Daniel, she said, her voice trembling. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I need to tell you something. I leaned back, arms crossed. What is it, Lena? She took a shaky breath. Tears were already starting to form. The guy I was seeing, he was cheating on me. I blinked. I wasn't expecting that. I found out a few days ago, she continued. He was seeing someone else the entire time we were together. I confronted him and he admitted it. He didn't even try to deny it. Her voice cracked. I feel so stupid, Daniel. I left you for someone who didn't even care about me. I thought he was what I wanted, but he wasn't. She broke down crying, covering her face with both hands. I sat there, watching her fall apart and felt nothing. Or maybe something closer to indifference. This was karma, plain and simple. She betrayed me for a guy who turned out to be a liar. Now she was tasting the same betrayal she served me. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I made a huge mistake. I thought I knew what I wanted, but I didn't. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to tell you. I let a moment pass. Then I spoke calmly. Lena, I appreciate you telling me. But it doesn't change anything. She looked up, her face streaked with tears. Daniel, I know I messed up. But can't we at least try again? I still love you. I know now you were the best thing that ever happened to me. I shook my head slowly. No, Lena. You didn't love me. You loved the idea of not being alone. And when things got tough, you ran. You didn't try to fix anything, you just replaced me. She reached across the table like she was going to take my hand, but I pulled away.